I'm gonna have Mr. Ralph Pelaez come up to the podium, and he's gonna share a little bit about his operation in Okeechobee. Mr. Pelaez has been a good friend of Ona for several years, been working with Dr. Arthur for several years, and so he knows a lot of the things that we're doing. He drives a lot of the research that at least my program does. Sometimes I have questions, I ask him and tell me, no, you're going crazy, you should do this. So I appreciate him being here, and unfortunately we had another producer that he won't be able to come, and that's why we only gonna have Mr. Pelaez. But the idea is to see what from the point of view of producer, right? What about the things that we just showed? Have you ever implemented something like that? Have you heard about it? Or if not, what do you think we need to do to make this type of technology accessible to people and help people implement them? Right? Sometimes like, we can show you that there's difference, but what is it that why people are not implementing it? Is it because they don't know? Is it too new? Or what can we do to implement that? And then after that, I'm gonna have Reinaldo and Kai join us here too in a minute, and then we can have questions about any presentations you might have. All right. So thank you, Mr. Voss.
Thank you very much, Doctor. It's a privilege to be here, and I commend everyone that's here and everyone that's online for wanting to explore and learn more. We know so little, and I can tell you I graduated from the University of Florida 52 years ago. I studied animal science, and it's amazing after hearing these doctors' presentations how many things still are similar. When I graduated, I was told that from preg check till first working, that not to be surprised with a 4 to 6% loss from preg check to first working of the calves. And we see from what the doctors presented, very much the same still today. They told us to, if that loss was bigger than that there was a red flag somewhere, needed to be finding out what it is. So we all know that reproduction, as they also noted, that reproduction is the most important thing that affects our cow-calf production.
Reproduction is the most important thing that we have to deal with, better than quality of calf and so on. We got to have a calf first. And what drives the pregnancy rates and calving percentages are disease control and nutrition. And nutrition is the single most costly thing that a producer does. So whenever people are trying to cut back costs, that unfortunately is one of the things that they try to tackle. But you can't cheat a cow into a pregnancy. So it's very important to be careful with your nutritional program. And so all these things are highly supported by what our speakers have told us. And it's all very interesting, some of these things that we need to continue testing and trying, because this is a very low margin business, and we got to do a lot of things right and very few things wrong. That's the bottom line here. So my family just celebrated 70 years of cattle production in the state of Florida. And prior to that, my father ranched in Colombia, South America, all of his life prior to that. And one of the things that he taught me very early on was don't keep open cows. He did that 60 years ago, and I've been doing it for over 50 years, continuing on. And I can tell you that what they say about reproduction is very lowly heritable. That's true, because you can't see a big improvement in reproduction by just selecting cows that don't get pregnant, but it sure helps, because every one that you sell that doesn't get bred, that's one you're not given a chance to do it again. So we've religiously sold open cows yearly for 52 years, and my dad did it before that. So we've got a reproductive herd, highly reproductive herd, but there's still all the problems that the doctors mentioned. They're all they all play a role, and very interesting to hear about these fatty acids and what Dr. Pohler said about the bulls being such a key role in it, because we give a BSE and we assume they're pretty good, but he proved to us that, and I've heard also from certain people who breed AI, we do heifers, and what difference those different sires make. So I hope that he can continue working with that where we can learn more about it. I always say when students come from the university with Dr. Thrift, I say, we know so little and there's so much to learn still, even though we've been doing this for a long time. It's infinite what's still out there to learn. And we had a lot of pictures from back 70 years ago of some of our cattle at our family meeting, and I see those cows and I see our cows today, and I wonder if in 70 years there's going to be as much difference in those cows with the way they look back then and the way they look now, 70 years from now. It'd be pretty amazing to see what can happen. But so nutrition, disease control are so important, and we got to have a calf. You know, we like to see really good calves, but we got to have a calf after all to pay the bill. I think that sums up our, you can go on and on forever, but
Yep.
If somebody has a question, be glad to answer it.
Yeah, so if anybody has questions, Mr. Pelaez, myself, or other speakers, we can go ahead and do it right now, right?
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting question. And on my drive over here, hour and a half that it takes to come from Okeechobee, I'm thinking about what I might say. None of it is written down or scripted, but I thought if somebody asked what would you expect, and I think it depends on your resources. Some ranches 80%, they think they're doing pretty good. Some ranches 95%. When we were in the Gulf Coast of Texas, ranching there, and I had Burmetic clover and white clover and ryegrass and planted oats, you expected 95%. And if you've got Bahia grass and you're just feeding some molasses, a lot of ranches do pretty good to be between 80 and 85%. But wet conditions as far as calving is really, really bad. As far as pregnancy during that time, I couldn't answer that, but I can tell you that last fall when we were calving, and we had a lot of heifers calve all close together in a 2-week period, and we had 25 inches of rain, and a lot of calves died. So it's great to have all calves born at the same time, but if conditions are real bad, you can also take a big loss. So that probably doesn't answer your question directly, but indirectly, weather plays a major role in calf loss and maybe in pregnancy as well. The doctors would know more about that. Would you all like to touch on that?
So,
You need to come with the mic.
all right. So any kind of stress, during the time of breeding, early gestation, it's going to be detrimental to pregnancy rates. Okay. And cows are not born to swim. So if they're underwater, they are under stress. Same rationale applies for mud. Same rationale applies for, extreme heat or extreme cold. Now, what can you do? I mean, if it's rainy, if it's wet, you have water standing, there's not much you can do. My recommendation is to avoid adding any additional source of stress to your cows. Okay, they're up here to stress already. Just try to minimize any kind of additional stressors that they're going to be exposed to. Make sure that they have enough minerals, available, because if it's too much water, they're going to have trouble finding all the nutrients that they need, not only in terms of grazing, but also a good quality of feeds. So anyway, there's not much we can do about that. You know, in Texas now, it's extremely muddy, right? It's complicated. What you're going to do? It is what it is. But my recommendation is avoid adding any additional source of stress to the cattle. Okay, and pray that next year it won't be as wet or muddy.
I'll just say in regards to that, so when Hurricane Harvey hit in 2018, the Gulf Coast region of Texas got 75 to 80 inches of rain in a 10-day period. And so a lot of those herds down there were just right finishing their breeding season. And that's where my oldest brother practices. And there was a high incidence of pregnancy loss in those herds. But I don't think it was driven from the fact that those cows were standing in water or swimming in water. It was the fact that they were being stressed and have to be moved by boats and all these other things. And a lot of them had feet problems, leg problems. And, you know, so I think that any environmental stress, like we had, you know, I don't know how many days of snow and ice in February, and I was calving our embryo recipients at the university right during that time. And those recipients have really hurt getting pregnant back in this late spring because of that environmental stress. But I think it's trying to minimize any other stress that's involved is the best that we can do. Because unfortunately, you know, it's like just when we think we have something figured out from the environmental point of view, then next year in Texas we won't have any rain, and you know then we'll be figuring out how to get cows bred with no nutrient resources.
Kai, to kick off the more questions, but something that I always hear people asking, and I'm sure you get that question a lot, is what about palpation, right? How much of that rectal palpation for pregnancy test cause embryonic losses?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So if you look at overall number of beef herds in the U.S. that are preg checked with any type of technology, it's 20% today. So 80% of the cows, beef cows that are walking around the U.S. undergo zero pregnancy diagnosis. They use the oldest and most reliable method, waiting for her to calve. All right, highly inefficient, but it works. So from a palpation or a ultrasound point of view, there's zero evidence to show that it has a negative impact to pregnancy maintenance. All right. Now, when I teach the undergrad students and they go in and it's like dribbling a basketball on the calf's head, well, that's a different situation, right? That they're actually putting a lot of pressure on the developing pregnancy. So very little or no data to show. If you look at the studies that have used pregnancy diagnosis versus those that have not, from a palpation point of view, the pregnancy loss is identical. And now with blood-based pregnancy testing, you know, there's basically three options: rectal palpation, ultrasound, or blood-based pregnancy testing that can be used as early as day 28 of gestation. So a lot of options there. And I think it goes back to the point that Reinaldo already mentioned, it's minimizing the stress of the handling. If you're gonna have a situation where you increase pregnancy loss early in gestation, the highest chance to do that is through transportation stress, putting those cows on a trailer and hauling them. So.
Yeah, to complement Kai's response, you know, if you AI, it's easy to picture that. If you don't, just think about the day of conception being day zero, the day that you AI the cows or the day that the bull bred the cow. That first 21 days of gestation, you know, and Kai can explain that better than I can. But you know, if you have 100 cows and you do a good job in terms of nutritional management, and let's say that you AI or not, if you have 100 cows and they're in good shape and they all ovulate, okay, and you breed them, all those cows, I promise you that 90 cows are going to be bred that day, the day that they ovulate, right? 90 to 95. Conception is going to occur. Okay, the embryo, the sperm is going to meet the egg, so conception is going to happen. Now, a lot of those pregnancies are lost in the first 2 weeks of gestation because that embryo that's formed cannot communicate to the cow or send a signal to the cow that she's pregnant. And it happens, it's normal. So when you preg check, let's say 30 days after AI, you get 50% pregnancy rates. So 50 cows are pregnant. So 90 cows had conception, but only 50 are pregnant a month later. It's because the embryo failed to tell the cow that she's pregnant. Now, one way that we can contribute to this failure is with stress. So all this communication between the embryo and the cow usually happens between day 15 and day 19 of gestation, right? So during that period, we don't want any stress to the cow that can impact this communication between the embryo and the cow. Otherwise, the embryo is going to fail to tell the cow that she's pregnant. She's going to cycle again, and then she'll never know that she was pregnant. So we recommend that for the first 21 days of pregnancy, more specifically, if you AI today, okay, you can do whatever you want with the cows, okay, not whatever you want, but okay, using common sense. You can transport them for the first 7 days of pregnancy. You can AI today, put on a trailer and haul them to the other side of the range, or you can drive them on foot to the other side of the range for the first 7 days of pregnancy, okay, after AI. Now, from day 7 to day 21, you don't want to do that. You don't want to transport them on a trailer. You don't want them, move them at all. You don't want to expose those cows to any stressful conditions. You don't want to handle them. You just want to let them be. Okay. And then after day 21, day 25, then you can start going back and start handling those animals normally. Okay. So that window between day 7, day 21 of the gestation, it's critical that we minimize the amount of stress imposed to the cows, okay, to minimize this loss in pregnancy. So on day 28, day 30, when you preg check, she's out of that critical period. Okay, she's past that, so it's fine. Unless you're doing like me, with these arms, I'm going to cause a lot of pregnancy loss because I don't know how to do it. You get somebody that's trained, then it's a whole different story.
So Reinaldo, since you're touching a little bit about this recognition of embryo and the mother, I know some of the folks that are here are interested about the fat supplementation too, but in terms after calving, right? So I know you covered a lot about supplementing before calving to increase the performance of the calf, but how can we use fat supplementation during the breeding season to help with that pregnancy loss and increase pregnancy rate?
Yeah, it's a good question. You want to show those ones real quick?
That's okay. Just give it.
So a lot of the research that I do in omega-6 fatty acids, Kai and I focus on this pregnancy recognition period. And one of the tools that the embryo needs in terms of being strong enough to send the signals to the cow that she's pregnant comes from omega-6 fatty acids. So the omega-6 supplementation can also be used in terms of a breeding season supplement, and you can get a pretty good bump in pregnancy rates by providing that supplement during the breeding season. So I'm not going to go. This is the product that I use a lot. It's one of the sponsors, actually. It's called Essentium from Arm & Hammer. And what we developed, and I'm going to skip all through this, but this is some, it's another presentation. But if we do a breeding season supplement, which is starting the supplementation, let's say 15 days before you start the breeding season. It can be AI, it can be bull breeding, it can be a combination of both. Okay, and you feed throughout the breeding season, you're going to have an increase in about 10 percentage points. So if you look here, 60%, this is 1AI only, okay? If you supplement with omega-6, you got 60% preg rates, 1AI. If you don't, it's 51, which is pretty good, but you can go up to 60 because you're providing that additional fuel for that embryo to signal the cow that she's pregnant. So that's why preg rates go up, okay, 60%. Now, what we're working now is on a breeding season supplement. And what we have in this data set is this is actually done in Brazil, the lower cows, 1AI, and then we turn out the bulls, okay? So the biology of pregnancy is the same between AI and bulls, okay? It's just the source of the semen is different. One is natural, one comes from a straw. But, so this is a supplement we design, and in the US, we're designing a block that contains the omega-6. We call that low moisture molasses tub. So first AI, 60% versus 51 again. Then we waited 15 days and we turned out the bulls. So you see that conception rates to AI were higher for the cows fed omega-6 okay, compared to the control cows. And then the pregnancy rates remain higher for the omega-6 fed cows. Of course, at the end of the study, the control cows kind of catched up or caught up. Now, what happened was when we weaned those calves, the 1 year later, overall calving rate was 94 versus 90%. But look at the differences in weaning age, because the calves from the omega-6 cows were born earlier in the breeding season, and of course differences in weaning body weight. So we did a quick economical analysis, and the return on investment was 4 to 1, because it costs a little bit to supplement the cows during the breeding season, but the response in terms of pounds of calf mean per cow exposed was very dramatic. So what we're working now is some sort of molasses kind of tub, low moisture molasses. It's about a pound a day intake, and that pound a day intake provides you with omega-6 that you need as a breeding season supplement to get those positive impacts on pregnancy rate. So there's a few companies in Texas that are working with me on that, and I don't work for those companies, not making any money out of this, but just a good way to deliver that technology into commercial operations. So you can actually design tubs not only to contain omega-6, but also to contain organic trace minerals. You can make a breeding season tub, you can make a gestational tub, whatever you can do in terms of providing those nutrients that we know are going to benefit not only pregnancy, but also the development of that calf in utero.
Any questions, people here in the audience? Sure. One second. So I'm gonna repeat the question because the folks at the webinar can hear people in the audience. So the question was about mastitis. There's a person in the audience that has problems with mastitis in beef cattle, and he's wondering if trace mineral supplementation could have be involved with that.
So who told you that? The guy that sells the minerals? Oh, he or she's right. Yeah, because minerals are very important for the immune system, and mastitis is an infection of the mammary gland, right? So if the cow is not in good shape in terms of immune status, which can be driven by poor mineral nutrition, she can develop mastitis. She cannot fight those bacteria that causes that inflammation in the mammary gland. So it is related. Now, which minerals? Then we have a plethora of minerals that impact the immune system, going from zinc, copper, selenium, all the way to macro minerals as well. So making sure that your cows are in good mineral status throughout the year, it's important for all the functions of her body, okay? Every single one, especially the immune system.
Any other questions from the audience?
Fly control to, well, the flight's going to be a carrier, or it can be a source of pathogens, you know, for the mammary gland, of course. No, but I'm not aware of research looking into that. But if you decrease the amount of flies around, that's going to help with you know, with exchange of bacteria between not only the environment and the cows, but also cow to cow. Yeah, so the question was about flushing too much minerals into the calf's body and that causing toxicity or some detrimental effects on that calf, right? Or the cow. So yes, you know, minerals can be toxic at some very high levels that can cause toxicity. Specifically talking about the multi-min injections, it's a good tool as a quick fix on deficiencies, right? If you have a situation where you have deficiency going on, you want to make sure that goes away right away. That multi-min shot, it's a good tool. Now, if you have a good nutritional program throughout the year, the multi-min injection might not be necessary because the animals are receiving what they need on a daily basis. My major concern with the multi-min shot is the inflammation that the shot causes. It's a very thick oil, right? And that injection causes a systemic inflammation in the body of the animal. So many times we have morbidity or even mortality from the multi-min shot, not because of the additional minerals, but because of the inflammation that the shot causes. Now, if you pick the time to use the multi-min shot, if you pick the animals or the situation, it can be very beneficial. But as Kai was talking about the stress during early gestation, you don't want to give a shot of multi-min at the time of AI or early gestation, because the inflammation that the multi-min shot causes can make the pregnancy to go away.
We have one here, you know, from the people joining us online, and they were asking if the fats in the study were rumen protected, and would you see a different response of cow and calf performance if cows are in different body condition score?
Okay, good question. The fat supplement that we use is rumen protected. Okay, it's the main source of fat. Rumen protected omega-6 supplement that we use from Arm & Hammer, which is one of the sponsors. and they have a supplement that's pretty, resilient to the ruminal bugs. Consequently, that fat bypasses the rumen for intestinal absorption. That's critical because if you feed omega-6 from a natural feed stuff, let's say the soybean meal, the crude soybean oil, all that omega-6 is going to be degraded in the rumen. So you need to provide as a bypass source. So yes, he was a bypass source, rumen protected. And the question about the body condition score. So if it's for reproduction, for pregnancy rates to AI bull breeding, we have done research showing that if it's a cow with poor body condition score or good body condition score, the beneficial effects are there independently of the body condition score. Now, if it's for the gestational stuff, then if it's a cow that in poor body condition score during gestation, doesn't matter what you do, it's not going to help that calf. So the cows need to be in good, adequate body condition score during gestation for them to respond to the omega-6 supplement.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yes, sir. All the research we've done was mixing with the omega-6 with some kind of carrier that's palatable to the cow, such as distiller's grain, or even around here you could use citrus pulp or wheat middlings, just something for them to kind of because the supplement itself, it tastes like soap, right? I know because I tried, so it's not very palatable. So you got to mix with something that's going to encourage the cows to go and eat. So in my experience, I don't know if you guys have DDGs around here. You do?
It's hard to find, but you can.
But anything that's palatable, and Bob should know better than I do, anything that's palatable that you can mix half and half, they'll eat it, okay? Citrus pulp, half citrus pulp, half of that supplement, they should eat it. So you can mix with dry feed. Now, one of the main limitations of this technology in commercial operations is the labor required for feeding. That's why we're coming up with those stubs, self-fed. Yeah. But Philippe could help you finding a good formulation for that supplement.
So thank you very much, Reinaldo, Kai, for coming. I know you guys have a busy schedule. We really appreciate you guys coming here.